Welcome, one and all, to a brand new episode of Ask a Ghost Hunter with me, your host, ghost hunter and author, Rick Hale. Last night, guys, I had a great time with a couple of friends of mine. We traveled up to Cudahy, Wisconsin, which is just kind of like on the outskirts of Milwaukee. And we saw a few bands at this place called the X-Ray Arcade. Just this absolute dive bar. But that's part of the charm of it. It was fantastic. The bar is right here and the stage is right up front. Small area, small and intimate. It was a really good time. Who do we see? We saw Black Season Witch, Descartes A Cant, also known as Dak, and Gene Loves Jezebel. That's right, the same Gene Loves Jezebel that everybody waited for videos to come on MTV if you grew up back in the 80s like I did. And then the headliner, Christian Death. Now, I know that, to some of you, you may not know who Christian Death is or Black Season Witch, but if you are into goth rock or dark wave or doom metal, those names will sound familiar to you. So if you ever get a chance and you're up in Milwaukee and you want to check out some great live music, go to X-Ray Arcade in Cudahy. Like I said, it's absolute dive bar, but that's what makes it great, because the bands, they have nowhere else to go, so they're just kind of out there having drinks and hanging out with people and chatting with people at the bar. It was a really, really great time. So I'd like to say thank you, give a personal thank you to Kelly and Rob for inviting me to come with. I had a great time, as always. Found a new favorite music venue. So anyways, this week, it's going to be something a little bit different. Rather than answering a question, we're going to be discussing something. And what we're going to be talking about this week, or on this show, are skeptics. Now, I am a huge fan of Danny Robbins' show, Uncanny. Never miss an episode. Stream it on Spotify. Love it. Always tells like a story from the perspective of the person who has experienced it, or at the very least, somebody who is close to a person that has experienced paranormal phenomenon. And then he has like two experts on. I know we're not supposed to call ourselves experts, but they do on the show, for lack of a better term, I suppose. Usually they have a believer and they have a skeptic. And they give their perspectives on, what it is that the person is actually experiencing. And I really do come down in the middle with a lot of stories. And I'm going to explain why that is in a minute. And so I'm listening to the show, and I always listen to what the skeptics has to say. Some of this stuff sounds, much more likely than the reported paranormal phenomenon. I mean, mistakes do happen. However, sometimes the skeptical explanation is a little on the implausible side. And that's what got me thinking about for, this show, dealing with skeptics. It's kind of a hard thing to do for some of us who would call ourselves believers. I actually am a skeptical person with some things. I believe in the phenomena, but I don't always believe every cock and bull story that I hear. There are situations where it seems more likely that they are dealing with something that is of the natural world rather than dealing with something that is of the supernatural world. But over the years, I've come across two different kinds of skeptics. And these skeptics are very much different. Now, the first skeptic is the kind of skeptic who they will listen to the story and they will investigate appropriately. Kieran O'Keefe is one of those guys. He's been Dr. Kieran O'Keefe, parapsychologist. He's been investigating the paranormal for decades. And he is one, he will open up his mind just enough to go to these locations and see for himself if there is actually something going on that, would say, hey, this is paranormal. This is something that is outside the realm of the natural world. And that's great. And I've worked with many skeptics that are like that. And they are typically very easy to get along with. Like I said, they will go with you, they will investigate, and they will make up their minds about whatever it is that they think is actually going on. And now for the second kind of skeptic. They call themselves skeptics, but I don't think that they are so much skeptical as they are cynical. They have absolutely made up their mind that this stuff absolutely does not exist. Ghosts don't exist. Cryptids don't exist. And God forbid, aliens are coming from different worlds to visit us here in our world. They really don't want to hear any of that. They just want to just say, nope, doesn't exist. This is all there is, and we are all that there is. We are all that there are. There's nothing else. These are the skeptics who will go on shows like Danny Robbins' Uncanny, and there is one that goes on there, and I'm not going to say his name. He is a British skeptic, and he will not go to these places to investigate because he's a psychologist. So he has all the answers immediately. So that is the kind of skeptic that I personally have a difficult time dealing with. The ones that have made up their mind that these things couldn't possibly exist. And they will tell you, even though I wasn't even there, didn't see anything, didn't go to the place to see if I experienced, but I'm going to tell you what you experienced. To me, that just seems very egotistical. Like you are not even willing to go to a place to see for yourself, or you are operating under the assumption that I am either hoaxing, I am lying, I am, or I have some kind of mental illness, or I was on drugs at the time, or I was overtired. I had a skeptic who, said that to me years ago when I was telling him about my very first experience with a ghost in my grandparents' house in Franklin Park, Illinois. And I told him the story, and I could still see it fresh in my mind, and it actually still gives me goosebumps when I think about it. And this is an important part of the story. That the house is gone. It was torn down many years ago. But he told me that is not what I saw. I had a dream. I was only 8 years old, and I couldn't possibly have known what I had seen. And I just looked at him and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I don't remember you being there." So it's that kind of skeptic that I have a very difficult time dealing with, because they're not really skeptics. They're more like cynics. No matter what you say to them, they're just not interested in investigating or even listening to your story and having an open mind about it. Now, I know that Charles Fort, what Charles Fort said, he's like, don't be so skeptical that you believe in nothing, but don't open your mind up so much that your brain falls out. That makes sense to me. I think that it's really important for us as investigators and researchers of paranormal phenomenon that we do keep that kind of a mindset. It's okay to believe in the phenomenon, but you don't want to believe in every single story that it is that you hear, because obviously people do make mistakes. People see things in the air thinking that it's a UFO when actually it is an airplane, or it is some kind of atmospheric anomaly. Here's a good example of an investigation that I did many years ago where skepticism had to come into it because these people were in danger. So I had a client that came to us and said, we're seeing dark shadows out of the corner of our eyes, and we're feeling nauseous, and we feel like we're being watched. So we went to the home and investigated, and here's what we discovered. There was a crack, a very small crack in their furnace, and it was releasing very, very small amounts of carbon monoxide. Just enough to poison them, but not enough to kill them. Not yet, anyways. So, did a little bit of research, did a little bit of reading, discovered that carbon monoxide, a little bit of carbon monoxide poisoning can cause things like hallucinations, can cause headaches, can cause breathing issues, can cause nightmares, can cause people to think that they're seeing things out of the corner of their eye. And of course, the big one being hallucinations. And it does happen. So we told the guy, we're like, hey, look, you need to get this fixed or we're going to be coming to this house because you're legitimately haunting it. It was a little bit on the expensive side, but he got it fixed. And everything that was happening in the house just stopped, came to an end. They went to the doctor cleared them, said that yes, there was a little bit of carbon monoxide poisoning. Problem solved. So that's why it's really important to believe in the phenomenon, but not believe in everything that you hear, to have a healthy skepticism while not keeping your mind completely closed. Not saying these things can't possibly exist, they do. Just not in every single story. So, hey, I wanted to say thank you again, everybody, for watching. I'm Rick Hale, ghost hunter and author, and this was Ask a Ghost Hunter. Got some new stuff coming up with some on the roads. Got some really great locations that I'm going to be going to, possibly this weekend, if the weather holds out, of course, because I don't want to be walking around the city of Chicago with it pouring. So stick around, and I'm going to be back with more Ask a Ghost Hunter and back with more On the Road. I'm Rick Hale, and as always, stay spooky.